Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to Season 4. This podcast is your guide to navigating career success in a world that's changing faster than ever. I'm your host, Batje Chibafa, certified professional career coach and founder of HUMHR. This season, we are exploring entrepreneurship as a career choice. Today, I have the honor of speaking with someone whose work has shaped how generations of business leaders think about strategy, leadership, and success. Professor A.J. Lonnie Strickland, Professor of Strategic Management, Emeritus at the University of Alabama. Professor Strickland has dedicated over 5 decades to teaching and writing about strategy, decision-making, and leadership. He is the senior co-author of the classic strategy textbooks used worldwide, strategic management concepts and cases, and crafting and executing strategy with Arthur A. Thompson, a book that I myself used and I'm sure millions of people around the world have used. Professor Strickland, welcome to HUMHR Career Insights. It is such a privilege to have you on the show.
Gee, it's a real pleasure. I was thinking how long we've known each other, but it's, let's just say it was last century that we met. And I would spend some time. My wife, Kitty, and I have been visiting Southern Africa for 40 years. I first arrived in 1985. And I was down in South Africa, and that was sort of the beginning of the end of the apartheid. And we have thoroughly enjoyed our stay. I really liked South Africa an enormous amount until I visited Zimbabwe. And I found Zimbabwe to have an incredibly, nice, enjoyable, smiling faces wherever I went. It was a different time back in the mid-'80s, and I was working for the Federal Reserve System in Harare, and they were so kind to me, and they gave me a car, and my wife and I are very adventurous, so we just took off. Went down to the Bumba and saw that part, then went up to the Highlands and saw that part. Later went over and we liked to camp out, and so we were up on the Zambezi camping out up there, and then we ended up in Vic Falls, where I'm still there every year now, and then Bulawayo. So I've seen most all of Zimbabwe. Our friends here thought I would probably retire to South Africa. We're very lucky. We have a game reserve in South Africa. And it's, I'll tell you where it is. It's about 25 Ks south of Palomara, adjacent to Kruger National Park. And on one side of our road is Kruger, and the other side is a syndicate. A lot of well-to-do South Africans have been one school teacher from Alabama, and we thoroughly enjoy. We have a home there, and we've been there for 25 years. So everybody thought when I retired, I just moved to South Africa and live, and it's a beautiful place, particularly down to the Cape. The truth of the matter is that if things were right in Zim, that's a loaded statement. But if they were right in Zim, Kitty and I would retire to Zimbabwe. It's the most beautiful place we've ever been, ever. It has the greatest weather on the planet. If you could just bottle up your weather and send it to other places in the world, you would all be millionaires, zillionaires. It's just beautiful. The people are friendly. And really, so we really, really have enjoyed our stay. And so I was over there in Harare doing some courses, and that's where I met Batje. And it's been a great relationship, even though we've been apart now for several years. So I'm really excited to be here. So actually, that's a little bit about me. and I'm ready to go.
Great, Lonnie. Yes, it has been a while since we met in person, and hopefully I'll meet you over in Alabama. Yeah, and just out of interest, Zimbabwe has been named I think it's Forbes #1 place to visit for 2025. So
Whoa.
yeah, so that is pretty true. Everything you said about the country is pretty true.
Well, we've really enjoyed all the businesses. When I first came, your chief product was tobacco, and you produced more tobacco than anybody else in the world. You were number 2 of tobacco, and that's kind of gone now. But we just like the magic of Africa. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and it's a great fun thing to do. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to be really observant of what's happening around you. One of the things that impressed me in both South Africa and Zimbabwe were the individuals who sold avocados. And this is what a strategist does. One avocado is basically like every other avocado. So why would I stop at this place and buy them, but not stop at somewhere else to buy them? So that's the kind of analysis I did. Well, it might be, on the left side of the road, and I don't have to pull across traffic.
Yeah.
But there was another very subtle indicator of which one that I bought. And it's going to sound kind of funny, but it was really true. It's how individuals stacked their avocados. That instead of just being out on the ground and you could just pick them up, they would build pyramids and little boxes for things and all of that. So obviously they cared about their avocados. So I couldn't actually taste the avocado. I guess I could have, but while I was there. But I thought that they had such great care in how they positioned the avocado to be sold. That's where I stopped. So sometimes in the world of entrepreneurship, it's not the big things. It's just little things that trigger a customer to say, I think I will stop here. So we really enjoy it. I've enjoyed doing what I do. I've taught 30,000 steers, and it's been a privilege. And I hope I haven't done them too much damage over the years. But anyway, so I like entrepreneurship.
Wow, Lonnie, that story is amazing. I mean, I would not have thought that the way avocados are stacked are what is attracting customers, right? But probably visually, that's what I would do. Just instinctively, that's what I would go. I wouldn't think so far as to say the way they've stacked their avocados shows that they care about their avocados, but that is a fascinating strategy. And talking about your 30,000 students, your textbook has become a classic universities worldwide. What gap did you and your co-authors hope to fill when you wrote the textbook?
We wrote it a long time ago, and it's now in its 24th edition. This is another side of entrepreneurship. Books are going to go away. Textbooks are going to disappear. And in Zimbabwe, South Africa, and everybody else in the world, the ability to teach is going to all be done over the internet. It's going to be a combination of online and in lectures. We been very, very lucky. Not to talk too much about avocados. If you're the only avocado salesperson, you're in good condition. So, but typically they're competitors. Interesting in our timing, and that's another part of entrepreneurship. When we launched that book in late 70s, it really just hit the market right at the right time. A lot had to do with the word quest. and a lot had to do with the word competitive advantage. The quest is the seeking of of your strategy. And competitive advantage is how you sustain it. And so we did it. My co-authors deserve the credit for the success of the book, not me. But we ended up selling about 3 million copies. It's in many, many languages.
Well,
and it was always nice when I got to travel around, see people who were using the book. And my wife would tell you, where two or more gathered, I'll give a presentation. And so I've really enjoyed it, but it's been a good thing. We've modified it over the years. It's now morphing into a combination printed book and online book at the same time. And eventually textbooks will be something that are historic. And that's a part of entrepreneurship, and that is you have to refresh your strategy often. And so anyway, we enjoyed it.
Okay, I want to talk about that, refreshing the strategy, but something just came to mind. You are retired now, and I read that you were training to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Is that true?
Well, my walking buddy of 45 years, it's always nice to have a partner. And we've been friends for a long time. He's a fellow professor, a much better professor than I am. And he also writes much more eloquently than I do. But we walk somewhere between 20 and 25 Ks a week. I'm 83 years old. And I'm not going to give a health talk, but I will tell you, walking is the best thing ever. And it doesn't take any equipment. It just takes willingness to get out there and walk. It doesn't matter if you're walking in the city or in the hills or whatever, or in the forest. It's just really good. And we spend a lot of time talking about all sorts of different things academically and socially and things of that nature. So it's really all about practice.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you do, the better you get at it. And then when you really get good at it, everybody says you're really smart and intelligent. Maybe you're not, but you have just practiced it so much that you look like you know what you're talking about. So that's been our thing. And to be able to visit the University of Zimbabwe and greet your graduating business years was just an impressive time, and watching what they're doing, and I have high hopes for a place that Kit and I love a whole lot, and that's the pop.
Oh, that is great, Lonnie. Strategy meets entrepreneurship. You just spoke about it quite a lot in your stories. And, one thing I admire about you is the way you tell stories. You are such a great storyteller. And I have this memory. I mean, it's been such a long time, but I distinctly remember the story you told in the seminar that I hosted, where you talked about, you narrated how the lion, I think you use nature a lot, like you said, in strategy, and you watch, right? And you talked about how the lion executes strategic escalation. And it doesn't just attack at the first sign of a threat. It has a whole process, right? It raises its ear. It warns you. It lifts its head, a warning roar. And it's really a masterclass in strategic escalation and conserving its energy. And the way you related that to Coca-Cola and RC Cola was perfect. And, as I was preparing for this conversation, I was thinking, what other wisdom is hidden in nature for entrepreneurs? What can today's entrepreneurs learn from nature's timeless playbook?
I think everything has strategy. A mosquito has strategy. It's developed a really keen smelling system. and can realize that you are going to provide just what it needs. And it's not a lot of blood, it's just a drop. And basically, blood clots real quick, so they evolved, and that's a good word for strategist or entrepreneurs, to first inject you with something that would dilute the blood and keep it liquid. Now, today we would think that was a marvel of science, but here's a little mosquito doing that. So we humans created a thing called DEET, which really smells pretty bad, mosquito. But then again, the mosquito morphs into something else. You were talking about lions, and we have lions all over our property. We have them in our front yard, and leopards, and cheetahs. And when you look at the difference between a cheetah and a leopard, I used to, when I give a talk, or sometimes I'll put a picture of a lion up there and say, if you were going to be attacked by this lion, where would the lion be, and when would it most likely attack you? And the answer is that they would get you early in the morning, late in the afternoon, and basically, they would like for you to be in an area that had a lot of bushes, trees, and shrubs. And the reason is that it can hide very nicely. In fact, we are sometimes driving around in our game reserve, and we'll go right past a line. It might not be more than just a few meters from us. And so we have to look very, very careful to see them. Now, we're in an open vehicle, but we're very safe. And so if I know that lions are going to only really attack in early mornings, late afternoons, the reason is they have competitive advantage, then I'm just more careful when I'm driving around. They're not very fast. A good dog can outrun a lion. But the deal is, the lion has to have the ability to pounce. And if you have a house cat, that's exactly what house cats. Leopards, on the other hand, look totally different. One is they have a hump behind their shoulders, and what that's showing is their strength, and they could easily, run 100K, 115K, and they are incredibly fast. So what they do is they hunt during the day. And the reason is that they have to be able to see their prey. And so you'll find them, a great place to look for leopards is out in an open area on an anthill. And they get up on top of the anthill so they can see. Now, how they learned how to do that, I don't know. But undoubtedly, when they were going to Cheetah College, they really paid attention to the professor. The professor said, you can get up high. Why would you want to get on the ground when your advantage is that you can see so well? So basically, they get up there, stay very, very quiet. And then, their prey will come along, springbok or a small animal out there that they would see. And basically, they take off running. And they are the fastest animal on the planet. Interesting enough, the second fastest animal is a wildebeest. You think a wildebeest is clumsy, or they're not. They're fast. So what they do is they just chase down that, wear him out, jump on his back, bite him in the neck, and that's how they get the prey. A lion tends to eat all by itself, and because it's the lion. And then when there's left, the cubs get to eat and the females get to eat, but mostly it's just the lion to start off with. In case of cheetahs, it's different. They're a family. So there'd be brothers and sisters and everybody else there eating on whatever it is that they killed. So what it says to me is that if someone says that that there's a lion outside and be careful, I would know that it's going to be in an open area. It's not going to be in a dense area because it doesn't have any advantage in a dense area. So it's competitive advantage, and that's the magic word. The super magic word is a sustainable competitive advantage. And so what they do is that they're going to be in open areas. On the other hand, a cheetah is going to be in a place where they can pounce. They're very, very fast, but they can only run. Now, how's this for? I just like cheetahs. They can only run 35 seconds. In 35 seconds, they've used up all of their energy, and they'll sit on their haunches trying to get up enough energy. So all you got to do is stay outside of the 35-second zone. But then you got to figure out how fast, what speed it's running. And it's 35 seconds, how many meters that is. But Springboks out in Botswana know that incredibly well. So the Springboks have sentries that stand around the herd. I mean, I think the animals might be smarter than we are. And they bark to each other. And those barks are saying, watch out, there's a cheetah out here in the northeast. And then the herd will move out of the way. And so it's a game. The prey gets smarter, then I have to get smarter. As a competitor, I can't fall. This is a big one. You need to write this one down. Never fall in love with your strategy because it's going to change. And so what happens is that I've got to continually update my strategy because my prey is updating theirs. And it's just a fun thing. And I love to talk about animals because we're around them all. And it's just interesting. And the real question was, who was their professor? Really? Was it their brothers, sisters, their parents? Hey, was it genetic? But it is fascinating, and then to see the difference in how they work and, how they are very, very consistent. Why can cheetahs climb trees so well? Lions can climb trees, but they're not very good at it. So, and then you throw in a few hyena, and you've got a really good mix there. Well, I could talk for days on animals because I have photographed thousands of times of these animals. But anyway, I think you can learn about entrepreneurship in everything. Birds is another good example of where they build a nest and why they build a nest there. And, yellow-billed hornbills, they carve a hole in a tree, and then when the female's in there with her eggs, they put mud over the hole so nothing can get in there, and they put a tiny slit, and that's when the male feeds the female through that little slit. It's like a thing you put a key on. So when I'm there, I just really, really enjoy it. And so, Batje, we'll talk about other things in animals.
You can definitely learn a lot from nature, right? And you're a great professor because I was taking down notes. And top 3 takeaways from that was competitive advantage, but you have to have sustainable competitive advantage. And then what you told me to write down, never fall in love with your strategy.
You're a good student.
Thank you. Now, how do you keep up with the pace of change as you get older, Lonnie? We talked about, technology, how your textbook is now also online. So technology has changed, over the decades. And, yeah, how do you keep up the pace? You know, one of the things that you spoke about in that seminar that I listened to several times was blue oceans. And that's another thing I'm interested in. Is there anything called blue oceans nowadays? And yeah, how do you keep up the pace with all that change?
Well, the book Blue Oceans is one of the great books if you want to read about it. And it talks about two types of oceans, red oceans and blue oceans. Mm-hmm. Regretfully, in Zimbabwe, you have to go a little ways to see the ocean. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that a blue ocean is an ocean that's very calm, not a lot of there's wave actions, but they're pleasant waves, and that. A red ocean is what's happening to one of our neighbors just south of now, is Jamaica, mm-hmm. Which had a Category 5 hurricane.
Yeah.
And I should be able to, I'd have to get my phone out here. One of you really fast people, the wind was blowing at 185 miles an hour. So that's going to be something like 230 kilometers an hour. Not very many things could stand up to a wind like that. And there was a lot of discussion. But a blue ocean is when the competition is not very strong. And what I can do is that I can really sort of study the markets and begin to change how I do my strategy or how I do my product. Mm-hmm. If you come to our cities today, you will find that what happens is that our downtown core cities are declining. And the reason they're declining is because of the ability to shop online. And we live in a town of about 100,000. And 40,000 of that is our university. So it's what we call a college town. Mm. But what I can do is, it takes me about 20 minutes to get to my office from where I live. What I can do, I can pick up my cell phone or computer and I can just dial up Amazon. That's our big one here. It's going to be big in Zimbabwe too, by the way. And I can order something. The very next day, they deliver it. And I don't have to do anything. I just have to walk down to where my post is and pick it up. And if it's too big to go in the box, they will come put it up near the house. But I have a relationship with the delivery people, so they'll put it in our laundry room. Now, what better? I don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. And the prices are incredibly competitive. So I suspect, there's a change where technology has suddenly changed dramatically what it is. Mm-hmm. I suspect everybody listening to this, if I said, have you ever heard of WhatsApp? You'll say yes. Mm-hmm. And the irony of the WhatsApp is I don't need the Zimbabwe telephone company anymore. Mm. I don't need telecoms. I could just call you across the street on WhatsApp. Wi-Fi is now proliferating the whole world, and it's going to proliferate Zimbabwe too, because it's far more inexpensive, and it is far, far better in terms of quality. And so what's happening is as technology comes along, then things change. And obviously the big one today is artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And how that's going to have a profound thing. I would put it up there with the invention of libraries. Somebody decided that, why do we have books all over the place? Well, we just put them in one place. Mm. And then there was a guy by the name of Dewey Decimal. I don't know how I remember that. And that was a way of cataloging books. And so you went into the stacks. That's what they were called here in America. And stacks were just where the books were. I don't have to do that now. I just pick up my phone, say, Siri, I need some books on this and that and the other. And 5 seconds later, there they are. Or what I do is I go to ChatGPT or Gemini or one of the other platforms there and say, listen, I'm thinking about going to Africa for vacation. Where? I've never been. Where do you think I ought to go? And Batje was just saying, the Forbes magazine said, you really need to go to Zimbabwe. And if you're going to go to Zimbabwe, you sure go to Hawaii. It's one of the great national parks on the planet, just south of Vic Falls. So you get the combination of the falls and Hawaii. And it's an easy drive. So how all that's going to work, how it's going to change competition is just amazing. If you can imagine, that the way we used to do business was a mural, or mural in our case, and a walk. And suddenly, and it was just slow, we did all these things. Today, we go at the speed of light. So I can carry on a conversation with you in Harare incredibly fast. The only thing we haven't been able to fix is the fact that you're 7 hours ahead of us. So either you're going to be in the afternoon or I'm going to be in the morning, and, or whatever. So this is something to be watching. And what I used to hear about in Zimbabwe, I'm going to pleasantly fuss at you. Man, what I'm going to fuss at you about is when I lectured so much, in all over Southern Africa, I would always hear, but Lonnie, that's great, but you don't understand, this is Zimbabwe. And we do things different here. He said, well, that's great. I mean, that's, you're very good at what you do. And they said, no, it's just Zimbabwe. If we were like America, like England, we could do something. Oh, it's Zimbabwe. Not true. Nobody has the Lumba. Nobody has Vic Falls. Nobody for sure has Kawangi. Nobody has the Zambezi. Like you have the Zambezi. You got great canyons to build great electrical plants. Okay. You got huge lakes up there. I mean, you got lots of competitive advantages. What you want to find are advantages that are in Zimbabwe that are not in the U.S. The big one is minerals, but the problem with minerals, you eventually get them all, and you don't want to do that. Diamonds is the big one. In your case, platinum is a huge one in terms that you can mine, but it doesn't do the ground very good. So I think that's going to be the big thing. Just the fact, Batje, that you and I are now so potentially so far apart. But yeah, we can carry on a conversation, and I can recognize you, you can recognize me. So I think there'll be lots of changes.
I think the technological change, particularly AI, is something that has done a lot of shaking up a lot of things, particularly even in the entrepreneurship world. But I was reading the other day, someone saying it was actually quite well-known people that were talking about AI should now really stop. What's your thought on that? They were like, this super intelligence particularly, they just said, there should be a pause on developing AI super intelligence or AI that matches or exceeds our human cognitive abilities. They raise critical questions about its potential risks to humanity. So what are your thoughts on that?
people said the same thing about wagons, and they said the same thing about cars. They said the same thing about airplanes. They said the same thing about televisions, telephones, all the other things that we live with every single day. I can go to any place in the world, poorest country around, and they're going to be carrying around a cell phone. And entrepreneurs figure out how to sell data for not very much money, 10 megabytes, 10 gigabytes of data. We all can now email, we can all chat. And to suggest that AI is going to be banned because we don't know how to use it is just simply not true. Or put a different way, if you want to take be rich, and people say to you, Lonnie, if I'll bet you that AI is going to be, the government's going to stop it.
Yeah.
I would take that bet every single day, because you can't stop technology. You and I are just going to have to figure out how to use it. And what we're going to find is that it has a lot more pluses than it does minuses.
Yeah.
Not to skip ahead of this time we've got together. I've spent my whole life doing competitive analysis. And Batje's going to send you a handout that I give people on how to do strategic analysis. The first thing we do in strategic analysis, we look at the industry. And then after we do the industry, and see what the direction of industry is, and not to talk too much about avocados. Avocados have been around a very long time. Some doctor somewhere said avocados are really good for you, and they'll cure disease is another thing. So I find that at our home that we eat a lot of avocados because they're healthy for us. Right? Well, that's the industry. Now you look at the product, the individual company. And I was telling you about the stacking of the avocados. Well, and then I find out that avocados also have a specific medicinal thing. In other words, if you eat avocados, your skin will be softer and more beautiful. And so, or avocados prevent influenza or whatever. Or they can mix them with something else. And so suddenly I'm looking at my avocado compared to your avocado, and we're competitors. So I'm going to genetically change mine when mine's larger or smaller or whatever. We're not going to be able to change the AI. We're going to have to learn how to use it. I saw something the other day, just mind-boggling. Oh, by the way, if I could give you one bit of advice, read, and when you get tired, read some more. And because that's the only way we can learn doing that. I don't think you learn watching TV. And maybe I'm old-fashioned. I like to read and take notes as I'm doing that. But what this study was talking about is we have two grandchildren. One is 17 and a boy, and we have a 15-year-old girl, and they're in grade one's in grade 11 and the other one's in grade 9. What do their children do?
Yeah.
Now, the trend in the U.S. is that it used to be that children started coming along when the mother was 17, 18, 19, 20. In America, it's more like 35, 36. And the reason is the woman really wishes to have her own career. She's not just all about having babies.
Yeah.
And some of our better companies are run by women, and women do an incredible job in leadership positions. So they're waiting. So I will just assume that our daughter and son will kind of follow that trend. And so the thought is you learn how to read and write in the first grade.
Yeah.
And the second grade. And then you learn how to not only read a sentence, but to read a sentence in contextual way instead of read word by word. And that's a big thing to do. And then you learn math. And then you learn all these other things. With AI, I don't need to know that.
Mm-hmm.
I can just ask, what is 43 times 72?
Yeah.
I don't have to memorize the multiplication tables. We all had to do that going to school, okay? I know exactly what 8 times 7 is because I learned it in the third grade. So it's a question of how do we embrace what we're doing with AI? And it's going to be huge, and it's going to create all sorts of problems, just like the automobile did. In the United States, a person can get their driver's license at 16. I think in your case, it's 21. And
It's 18, I think.
18.
Mm-hmm.
It's 21 in South Africa. And so it suddenly gives that child an enormous amount of freedom. Where at one time, they couldn't go very far. Now they can go a long way. And they can drive too fast. And it makes every parent just, the greatest sound from a child is, I'm home. So in AI, potentially I can track them. I can put an air tag on a product. You were talking about Kilimanjaro. My daughter was so worried about me. I was the only one climbing the mountain with a necklace that had an air tag on it. So that we love each other so much that she could see where I was at any given moment. And I think, she watched me very closely. I can watch her. So suddenly, things are different. So it's a way we embrace that, and as opposed to saying it's the devil doing that. It's not going to go away. It's going to do a lot more. When I'm working right now, I keyboard. Your keyboards look just like our keyboards. I suspect in 3 or 4 years, we will not be using keyboards anymore. We'll just talk to the computer.
Yeah.
And I can say, send Batje a message, tell her I enjoyed seeing her, and I really like her earphones. So these were, so I think you want to read, you want to get ahead of everybody else. Everybody else is going left, you go right.
Yeah, so reading is a critical skill that you think has transcended all technology, all technological innovation, whether you're reading on screen, wherever you're reading, but you still have to read.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think books are going to go away. Mm-hmm. But I think, we have the ability to print things out, or, we have tablets. Mm-hmm. And one of Amazon's products called a Kindle. Yeah. What it is the reading book. So when I buy a book, it comes on my Kindle, and I can sit there and read it, and it's much less expensive, and I can distribute it just like that. So I think we need to embrace all of that. The big thing is that the introduction of products are going to come at a much faster rate. The next chip that DaVita is getting ready to put out, and it's going to be in late 2026, is a chip that has a reasoning capability. In other words,
Yeah.
I have a relationship with my computer, and I'd say, listen, I don't know what I need to do about tonight. I'll take my wife out. And then my computer would say, your wife really likes Mexican food. Mm. And she likes how it's spicy, and she likes a place called Cancun.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been there, Lonnie, in about a week or two. Why don't you take her there? She will like that. And I'll probably just say, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. And get you there, whatever the person, wherever the computer's going to be. And we go to Cancun, and she says, Lonnie, I'm so glad you wanted to go here. Or more than likely, this is the situation in America. I would say, Kitty, where would you like to go have dinner tonight? She'd say, I want to go to this particular restaurant, or I think I'll just cook in. So that's an interesting thing. Eating in becomes now a real special deal. And so last night, in case you want to know what I had for dinner, I had spaghetti, because she cooks the best. And all due respect to all the women on here, my wife, this is the best spaghetti on the planet. Okay. So there we go. So I think you have to embrace technology.
Yeah. I agree with that. And to our listeners, season 2 of HUMHR Career Insights spent a lot of time talking about AI and the future of work. So if you have not listened, go back to season 2 and find out a little bit more about what we spoke about in season 2 on AI. Professor, I want us to talk about something that you touched on earlier, and that's the entrepreneurial mindset. And you've seen thousands of talented people over 5 decades now, and not all of them rose to their potential. What's the mindset shift that separates people who build things from people who just work in things?
It was a very good question, and I spent a lot of time thinking about that. In fact, I wrote a whole page or so of thoughts, and so I benefit from this program as well. And to use kind of a metaphor, entrepreneurship's like building a house, and basically, you're not going to have a great house unless you have a great foundation.
Mm.
And because a house of all that. And nobody wants to sleep on a foundation. They want to sleep in a house. So, but you have to have discipline to do that. And basically, that's knowledge. And in business, that's accounting, finance, marketing, skill sets that I have. I can do plumbing, or I can do electrical, or I have good marketing skills. I have good communication skills if I'm selling communications and things of that nature. And if you don't have those, your odds of being successful are very, very slim.
Yeah.
If we go down the accounting world, which if you went to a college, probably the courses you disliked most were economics and accounting and finance. And here I'm telling you, you need to know all of those. Microeconomics would be the course you took, is a pure strategy class. It tells you how it works. Mm. And it's a good class. Every now and then, Batje, I go back and just the fun of it. The university lets me do what I want to do. So every now and then I say, hey, I'd like to teach a course in microeconomics because I haven't done it in a while. Mm-hmm. And it's like saying, I haven't ridden a bicycle in a long time, but I used to ride one all the time. Do you think I can ride one today? And, and I get on, I'm kind of wobbly for a little bit, but it all comes back. So you got to have a baseline knowledge. The other thing you got to have a mindset. If you're going to do entrepreneurship, you're going to make mistakes. And you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold. It's a great country music song from the U.S. The rest of those phrases are, you got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, you got to know when to walk and know when to run. It's a great thing. That's Kenny Rogers, by the way. And you can just look that one. It's called The Gambler.
Yeah, I know the song.
The Gambler. So anyway, I've got to have a mindset. We learn basically by making mistakes. If you watch a newborn baby and the baby's 6, 7, 8 months on, they seem to know how to crawl right off the bat.
Yep.
Okay. And then what you'll see is that they will figure out that if they take these things called hands, it's fun to watch a baby and realize, hey, these things belong to me. And then what they'll do, they'll go to a chair and they'll put their hands on the seat thing and they will try to pull themselves up. And the mother and the father are so concerned about them hurting themselves, but they're pretty resilient. They can fall and it's not, I guess the good Lord takes care of them. But anyway, what they end up doing is pulling themselves up and then they stand up. And then what they'll do is they'll just stand there, move around. And then what they'll do is try to take a step to the left or right. And they're used to fall.
Yeah.
But undoubtedly, for babies, that the rear end is really very soft. And they seem to always land right on the rear end. And it doesn't bother them at all. Where we would look around to see if anybody watched that would fail. Because Lonnie, have you been drinking again? I mean, really, what's going on? Are you just getting old? What is that? Baby doesn't even think about it. And then eventually the baby starts walking around that chair, holding on. And then they hold on with one hand. They still fall. And then they let it go all together and just stand there. And they still fall. But then they get right back up again. They don't look around to see if anybody, saw me do something so stupid. But then what they do is they just take a step. And you can blink your eye and the next week they're running around the house.
Yes.
Now, how did all that happen? First is they don't have a concept of failure. And if you're going to be entrepreneurship, you're going to mess it up. It's just, particularly if you're doing something that no one has ever else done before. A few minutes ago, I was talking about I need to understand the industry and understand the players. And we talked about avocados.
Yeah.
It really helps me that if I'm going in the avocado business, is to find out that people are buying avocados from ladies that have stacked avocados instead of just having them in a box. And so what I do is I copy that, emulate.
Yes.
Which then you see everybody has stacked avocado. Now what do? Well, I've got to now change my strategy to where maybe I make them in a square thing or a round thing, or I grow larger avocados or smaller avocados. Or I guarantee my avocados. If you don't like my avocados, bring them back and I'll give you another one free. All of these things, all this strategy in terms of it. Maybe I find out that it's better to be at an intersection where there's a robot so I can run out in the road and and sell those. And I need to have them in the right number because we're not going to make any change here. And I've been in Zimbabwe a long time. In fact, I was looking at my dresser where my clothes are.
Yeah.
And underneath the glass on top of it is I think it's $200 trillion Zim note that I have from your past. And when I say I'm not rich, I say, but look at that. Not a few hundred trillion millionaires here. So, and Zimbabwe has shown resilience to change. I mean, I think you're Zimbabweans are very, very smart because you've just grown up in a chaotic world, and it's either you have to dance fast or not dance at all. And I think that's why you make good entrepreneurs. So it's got to be a willingness to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Grown people, when they make a mistake, they look around to see if I watched them make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't learn how to swim before you are 10, 11, 12 years old, you'll never learn how to swim because you'll be so embarrassed about being in the pool. A 6, 7, 8-year-old person, if you say jump in water, they just jump.
Yeah.
And you can then do things with them. When you're raising a child, there's no book on how to teach a child to learn how to walk. In fact, if there is it is a good book. It says, just sit on the other side of the room and don't talk. The child can handle this all by itself. So you have to have a basic knowledge base, and then you got to be willing to make mistakes. And I can't learn without making mistakes. And an entrepreneur has to do that. You also have to have a lot of self-confidence. You are constantly analyzing that because competition changes sometimes, very quickly. And that means I've got to have some perseverance.
Yeah.
I don't get it right first time. I cannot teach an adult how to swim, nor can I teach an adult how to ride a bicycle. And I can't teach them how to ride a bicycle is because all they can think the whole time of learning how to ride a bicycle, how hard that's going to hurt me when I hit that road. Child never thinks that way. And so you've got to have a certain, I don't know if it's inborn, I don't know if it's part of our genetics or whatever, that we're predisposed to be able to do things. I used to work for our second largest telecom in the U.S., and I came up with a great idea of making a whole lot of money over in the extreme northwest part of the United States. That would be the state of Washington. I'm in the extreme southeastern part. Okay. We're talking about something that is, a long way away to get there. So I came up with this incredible strategy, and this real entrepreneur coming out with a new product. I did a whole analysis of it. I met with the board of directors because it's going to be really expensive, and of the company, and I did a good job selling it. They said, Lonnie, if you think that's what we ought to do, you go for it. And so I did. And it was a disaster. I mean, it just fell flat on its face. And who I was competing against were families who had a product that was really good, but our product was far, far superior.
Yeah.
And the end of the story was that family connection was so strong that they were willing to almost die to stay in business. Where for me, it was just a business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And And we also have laws in the United States that says you can't trounce on little people. That if you're a big company, you just can't come in and knock them over the head. And I was concerned about that. Well, anyway, so I lost Bell South $30 million. So I came back, and the CEO of Bell South, President of Bell South, was a mentor of mine, and I'd known him for a long time. So he called me up to the office, and he was on the 35th floor. And you know, when you're getting ready to get shot, it's always best to put on your very best clothes. So I wore my best looking suit, and I walked in, and I said, I don't know how Larry Taylor's going to do this. Will he just shoot me? Or if he's on the floor, maybe he'll just throw me through the glass and I'll die on the way down. And he said, come over. And, you know, he had one of those big offices that had a sofa in it.
Yeah.
So I went over and sat in the office. The secretary is a strange world that Larry and I had. We only drank apple juice. He'd bring apple juice, and we'd sip our apple juice at all. And he said, what did you learn from that? I said, I learned that families can be more powerful than the most powerful company. And besides that, our government has said that if you do in a family with all of your might, they're going to be able to sue you for treble damages. In other words, let's just say they did $100,000 worth of damage. We have to pay $300,000. And what that does is it protects individuals who are going to be entrepreneurs in the future. And I miss that. And he said, how do you feel? And I said, I feel horrible. He said, what'd you learn? Well, I learned that strategy doesn't work. And he said, Lonnie, we do $16 billion in revenue a year.
Oh.
Lonnie, that 30 million doesn't even make the needle move.
Whoa.
You did an incredible job. And I was debating whether to stay at Bell South. They were offering me a position to be executive vice president of strategy of this large company. I'd made lots and lots of money. Or I could go back and be a professor. And I elected to go back to be a professor. But it's really ironic that I really messed up. But instead of getting thrown out of the building, I got promoted. And it was because I was willing to take a risk. And if we don't take a risk, we're never going to get there. But if you take a risk, you stand a high probability of not getting it right. So it has to take somebody that can take that sort of stuff in order. So I talked about the foundation, accounting, finance, marketing. It's also good to be an apprentice. Instead of just leaping into a business, go work in that industry and take good notes, learn how it works, and so forth. And that takes some time. A lot of times entrepreneurs are too quick to want to get into business. But what they ought to do is study it first to make sure that that's kind of what it is that what they want to do in that stuff. So so it really takes a special person, and the big one is a person that can manage not making good decisions. In other words, if you don't like to make mistakes, then don't be an entrepreneur.
There is a lot in there, Lonnie, and that not making mistakes, being willing to make mistakes is a big thing, because there's the fear, isn't it? The fear of, oh my goodness, who's watching me? And that fear that you had of losing so much money. And for me, what really points out at me is that growth mindset, that to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to have a growth mindset. But you mentioned something about being a special person. And I wonder, are we born entrepreneurs, or is it a skill that can be learned from the failures, from the constant failing and learning, making mistakes, and also from the foundation of the knowledge that you spoke about? Is it in our DNA?
I think I don't on the DNA part. It's what's transferred in that DNA, and I'm not sure that if you have successful grandparents, that's going to make you a success.
Yeah.
Although it can't hurt, because more than likely, if they're successful, they got you a really good education, which then allows you to be successful. I do believe, though, that if your parents or you with your children are willing to give your children, instead of giving them this much room, give them that much room to where they can try out new things. I talk about riding a bicycle. You cannot learn to ride a bicycle unless you fall.
Yeah.
It's just part of learning how to ride a bicycle. The good thing is when you're 5 or 6 or 7 years old, I don't know the customs of Zimbabwe, but here my mama would just blow on whatever hurt, and it would just go away.
Yes. It's universal.
Oh, it is universal.
Yes.
And and sure enough, the next day it was all well and everything. I get on the bicycle and fall over again, and then I learned how to not fall. And I did it when I was young. And consequently, then I terrorized my parents by saying, look, I don't have to hold on. Look at this, and they would say, don't ride in gravel and stones. And I'd say, this is the art of growing up. I think you have to start doing that. And it's not that you're running a business. It's that you're climbing a rope or learning how to climb a tree, or you're doing something, or your parents give you this much room instead of no room at all to do. I think it also has a lot to do with the friends you hang out with. And if I'm around nice people, I tend to be nice. And some people are more lucky than that than others. And doing that.
Yeah.
But it's got to have the opportunity of having a safety net, underneath you. And that might be the loving arms of your parents. That might be you that did that. Larry Taylor went on to be incredibly successful and great in terms of running the business. And the reason was he was willing for his key employees to make mistakes. And he thought that they had a drive, they had the knowledge, and it's just they had to try it to see if it worked. And if you don't ever try it, you'll never learn how to ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
But if you can learn to ride a bicycle, you got a competitive advantage. And that's what you're looking for in doing that.
Yeah.
It's also good to have really good friends. My best friend is this guy I've been walking with for 45 years. And we talk constantly. And his name is Ron, R-O-N.
Yes.
And that's how he ended up getting ready to climb Kilimanjaro. So I'll tell you that story in just a second. But I'd say, Ron, I'm thinking about doing this and this and this. What do you think? And he then would say, I think that's a terrible idea, Lonnie. You've never done that your whole life. But on the other hand, you know a whole lot about Africa. And you've got good contacts there. I think this would work really well in Africa, in education. And so I ended up working for virtually every university in Southern Africa and all the way up to Uganda. And in terms of just doing what I do.
Mm.
And so I don't think it's ever we're all by ourselves. We just have we have a family that we grow up. And some of those families for me now are a lot younger than I am, who are still giving me advice. I don't think we are ever Superman or Superwoman. I don't think we're ever invincible.
Yeah.
But I hope I keep on trying to do that. When I retired, I took over a company in Nashville, and it had been a disaster for 10, 11 years. And they asked me, said, would you come in and be our chairman of the board? And I said, yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Let me look at the company first. And I accepted it. I said, I'd also like to be president of the company. And the company was just terribly risk averse. What we did, how we made money was we tracked immunization records. Now, I'm not sure in Zimbabwe how it works, but in the U.S., that before you can go into grade 1, you have to show that you've had smallpox, polio, all these vaccinations, because children, and college students all live right here. The concept of social distancing, where you were, a meter, we were 3 feet, is impossible at a university. 42,000 of us, and we only live in about a half a square mile. It's impossible to do that. So we track those immunizations. So we track a lot of them, about 400,000. I came in, and the thought was that this price that we're charging is at the upper limit, and it can't be changed. It just can't be changed, because if it does, the whole thing will fall apart and we'll all be broke.
Yeah.
I said, now this is an entrepreneur speaking, I'm willing to take the risk.
Mm.
And if it collapses, I will be the one who will stand up in front of the shareholders and tell them that I really made this mistake. And in fact, I said, I don't want to be CEO. I want to be spear catcher. And you Africans understand spears really quite well. So in your past. So what I was going to do was be out there and everybody throw the spears at me and I'd try to catch them. So, yeah, man. But anyway, so I said, you go out and do it. And if we make a mistake, I'll take all responsibility for it. They said, really? I said, absolutely. All you got to do is just tell me what you're going to do and I'll give you the thumbs up and you go do it. And if it fails, I'll tell everybody it was my idea. End of that story is we've just finished my first year running the company.
Yeah.
Instead of not making any money, we're going to make $2 million. And how we did that, didn't take any science. We just raised the price. And now we're coming out with new products. I think this company is going to be a $20 or $50 million company all over. And it's all about having a mindset that I can make a decision, and if it's wrong, I'll take responsibility of it. And then what I'll do is I will put that off to the side and maybe fuss at myself for regret, not being very bright, but I'll go ahead and do something else. I know we're running shorter.
Yeah.
But if you want to read some good books
in
this area, I can go back and read a classic, 1940, called Atlas Shrugged, Shrugged, Atlas Shrugged, written by a woman who Ayn Rand, German lady. And it's a novel about someone doing something different. And it's a classic book. And if you're ever an executive in the U.S., you put that book in your office and people say, whoa, I'm Bradley. Yes, I read it. And I've read it several times. And, I keep up with my reading. I I really have a long walk with myself to figure out how tolerant I am of risk. And then I would make sure I know enough accounting that I can talk to an accountant. I know enough finance to do finance.
Mm-hmm.
And I know enough marketing to do marketing. It doesn't mean I'm a genius in it, but I can carry on a conversation with it. And then I've got to have good social skills to be able to work with people. Story about Larry Taylor.
Yeah.
He could have just thrown me out the window. But he didn't. And I came back and worked harder. He became successful. I became a little bit successful. So.
Okay. Yes, we are running out of time and I want to be respectful of your time, but I would like to find out about the lecture you talk about on how to be a millionaire. Yes, how to make $5 million. And that is one of the lectures that that are like on the internet. When you Google Lonnie Strickland, it comes up on top. How to make $5 million. So,
Go ahead.
So how can that be applied, or do you think it can be applied in the context of Southern Africa, in the context of Zimbabwe, in the context of Africa? I don't know if it's been tested, if that principle has been tested. And you can tell us a little bit about the principle and if you think it can apply.
Well, this is what I'm really known for. And all I can tell you, it works. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's an incredibly simple concept. All students are poor. Okay. It's a worldwide deal. Okay. Mm. Some were lucky enough to get a scholarship. Other had their parents pay for it. Some students, the parents paid some, the student had to work. Mm. And in some cases, there were individuals here in Alabama who just went up to the door of the school and said, I want an education.
Yeah.
And to the credit of all universities, they have special places for people who want it so bad they're willing to do whatever's necessary to get it done. They by the way, turn out to be some of our very best students. Mm-hmm. So here's what happens. When you're a student, by definition, you're poor. Okay. And so you're getting ready to graduate, whatever you graduate. My degree, interesting enough, you'll say, hey, I want to spend some more time. My degree was in physics and mathematics. And it gave me a great understanding of how things work. And then I got an MBA. Then I got a PhD. So that's where I got my business stuff. Mm-hmm. You have this thing called pent-up demand. It's a microeconomic term. In other words, I hope someday, and this would be very true of Zimbabwe, I want to work enough so I can get a car.
Yeah.
Or I can get my own house or whatever it might be. And so what you want to do is that you want to graduate and then you want to go get a car, get a house, get a motorcycle, get something, nice clothes, whatever it is. Mm. But you don't, you want to strut around and say, hey, listen, I've got nice clothes on, or, I've got this car that works and all of that. What I try to get a 21-year-old to do, and that's how old you are when you graduate from school.
Yeah.
That instead of living on what your pay is going to be, okay. And in the U.S., now remember the currencies are different than all of that. But our students would go out and make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And the 100,000s are all of our technical people. Mm-hmm. Marketing people make 50. Our technical people make 100. That doesn't mean that's not where it's going to end up, but that's where it starts. It's more money than you've ever had in your entire life. Mm-hmm. And all I ask you to do is to save a portion of that money. And now here's the story. let's just say that you are making $40,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Could you live on 39,100? Answer, of course. I've never lived on 30,000 before.
Mm-hmm.
I can live on 31,000. And I'd say, then why don't we do this? Takes a lot of discipline. Discipline is a key word. Instead of living at a $40,000 standard of living, in other words, you have an apartment somewhere, okay? You're living at 31,900, and maybe you have a roommate to help cover the cost to do that. And then what you do is you take that $9,000, which turns out to be, now we're talking about US dollars.
Yes.
Turns out to be $750 a month. That's a lot. That means you can't live in way up here. You're going to have to live down here.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is that you save that. And you put it into a savings account. The one I use here is the Standard & Poor's Index, but there are indexes in South Africa. There are indexes and this is much more complicated for you because you could put it in different currencies.
Yes.
And then what you do is you just keep saving that $750. When you're about 45 years old, you're now more than likely in a relationship, more than likely you got children coming along. This is a tough time. And you need a larger house, you need clothes, you got doctor's bills, you got all this sort of stuff. That you'll have $1 million. And that money's just sitting in an account.
Mm.
But now you're making not 40,000 because you're doing such good work. You're making 70,000.
Yeah.
So you're living on 69,100, which is more money than you've ever seen in your entire life. And so what you do is just keep that up. And when I started this a long time ago, we were saving $50 a month. And my starting salary at the university was $12,000. Today it's $150,000. That's just the inflation. The end of that story is that when you're 60 years old, which is in today's world relatively young,
yeah,
you'll have $5 million. And now you can do anything you want to do with that. But most people by then are really well off. Kitty and I live on a lake. If I look at that side, it's a beautiful lake out there. We've got, we're sitting on about 2 hectares of land. And we bought those a long time ago. And we're not going anywhere. We've been here 40 years. So what we've done with that is we've created a foundation.
Okay.
You go look at it. It's called stricklandfoundation.org. Mm-hmm. You can actually see, and our daughter, who's 55 now, by the way, runs that for us. And the difference between being rich and being wealthy, you don't want to be rich, you want to be wealthy. You can only be wealthy if you give it all away. And so we give money to Zimbabwe, to Zimbabweans. We do a lot for protecting elephants, and particularly human interaction with elephants. Last year, 62 subsistence farmers were killed by elephants. Elephants don't kill humans. But what happens is there's this farmer there who has a garden, who's feeding his family with that garden, and what's left over takes his bicycle, rides into Beck Falls, and sells his vegetables. And they're good vegetables. Remember the avocados?
Yeah.
And so what we can do is we can figure out how to keep the elephants from eating the vegetables. And it's a very, very great way to spend, Titus and I, to spend our retirement of knowing that we're making a difference in there. We do a lot in funding education, schools around the world.
Mm.
And so we, don't share this, but we give away about $500,000 a year. And our daughter does that.
Wow.
And now I don't think you can be wealthy until you give it all away. But in order to give it all away, you got to have it.
Yes.
Not that bright. I just started when I was 20 years old saving money.
Mm.
The end of that story is that now you can do things that you could only dream that you could do in the past. We're not as frugal. In other words, as Kitty and I would tell people, we used not to buy desserts because they were too expensive.
Mm.
Today, if you come to eat with us, you'll watch Kitty and I buy a dessert and we split it. We still don't spend a lot of money. Both of us drive used cars.
Mm-hmm.
They work incredibly well. I don't need a fancy, shiny car.
Yeah.
I'd rather be known for what I do than what I drive.
Mm. Mm.
It just takes discipline. And so that's how that talk works. And I literally cannot go hardly anywhere that I don't run into someone I taught over all these years. And what they will want to talk about is hopefully how much money they've saved. Or the other conversation is sad and I forgive them, but what they say is, I just couldn't do it.
Mm.
I needed that car. And basically, once you get on that train, there's no getting off of it.
Yeah.
So you can only do you're about 21.
Yeah.
It also you have small children and they have allowances is to get them to have, I don't know what you call it in Zimbabwe, a piggy bank. Is that the right term?
Yes, generally, yeah. Piggy bank.
Something you put money, and that's the savings. Batje, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed being with you again, and this marvelous technology is marvelous.
It is. Thank you, Lonnie. And I appreciate the time that you've given HUMHR Career Insights today. What powerful, powerful lessons. You can only be wealthy if you give it all away. And I'd rather be known for what I do, not what I drive. Those were my takeaways from that last story. What powerful insights, Lonnie. And I am grateful and thankful. You have shaped and inspired millions of students and business leaders around the world. And today you have inspired us here too at HUMHR Career Insights. So thank you so much to our listeners. Thank you and stay inspired. Okay.
Thank you very much.